Article 12.
Islam.
Islam. Gratitude, Brother Barnzell.
Islam. Praise Allah. Honor to the divine prophet. Article 12. That the committee of correspondence in the respective colonies do frequently inspect the entries of their custom houses and inform each other from time to time of the true state thereof and of every other material circumstance that may occur relative to this association.
Islam. So it says that the committee of correspondence in the respective colonies, right? So what was the respective colonies? How many was it?
It was 13.
13. Do frequently inspect. So basically the committee of correspondence was like the police, right? Because it's saying that they do frequently inspect the entries of their custom houses. What is a custom house? Anyone? Let's look and see what a custom house is. Islam. I'm sorry, was someone trying to speak?
Oh, it is where goods are stored, Islam. So we're looking at the definition right there.
Islam. Custom houses is where goods are stored.
Islam, yeah, I was going to suggest when you say committee of correspondence, I was going to say post office.
Okay.
I mean, they're a committee of correspondence, aren't they?
Well, you know, if it was, I would go along with you if it was the post office. But because we know that the post office actually was actually here in 1774. So, you know, if it was the post office, then it should have said the post office. I look more at the committee of correspondence, more like, you know, agency that's going in to verify and validate the entries in the you know, the custom houses. But let's look up committee of correspondence as well. We can do that as well. Islam.
Islam. Hey, sis, they didn't have the eggs today, sis. There were no eggs out there. I went out there, there was no eggs at all.
All is well, brother. I got some eggs today.
I know,
Yeah,
I thought
all is well. Yeah, I wasn't gonna I had to get the store-bought.
oh,
You know,
man.
I've been so used to getting them directly from the you know, from the farm. But yeah, praise Allah that the stores had them.
Islam. What was the second definition?
Committee
Second
of
word?
Committee of correspondence.
Okay, what does custom house mean? A governmental office, especially at a port where customs are collected and ships cleared for entry. A customs house.
It's
And in addition, you said port of entry.
Well, it would be where the port of entry is, but the house itself is more so where things are stored, you know. So, you know, okay, so let me give you an example. Any of you all you've ever been on the interstate, and when you're going through a toll, and you know, like that little office that's off on the side of the road, and sometimes they may say, Sometimes it's a way station, sometimes it's just the office. But yeah, that's more like what you would, see, that's more like what a custom house would be. Right, because that is a port of entry a lot of times when you're going from one location to another location.
That's right.
Islam. All right. Committee of Correspondence. Committee of Correspondence, history.com. Let's see here. Committee of Correspondence, where emergency provisional government set up 13 colonies in response to British policies leading up to the Revolutionary War. Also known as the American Revolution, the exchange of ideas, information, and debate between different committees of correspondence help organize and mobilize. Okay, so now it's going into rhetoric. Let's see. Up until the late 18th century, Britain's American colonies enjoyed a high level of autonomy and control over their own political and economic affairs. That's not true. All right, so yeah. See if we can go down here and get some more truth because it's more rhetoric. Tensions began rising in 1764 when the British Parliament's passage of the Sugar Act. I'm gonna bring up the Sugar Act. The Sugar Act. That don't sound like nothing going on in Africa to me. Right? Did that sound like something that was going on in Africa to you all? The Sugar Act? That sounds like something that would have been going on down south on those islands.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If you're talking about, Negro River, West Africa, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Down south.
Islam, that's right, down south. It says the Sugar Act, which imposed a duty on sugar and molasses imported into the colonies. This was followed swiftly by the Currency Act. We getting into it now.
I was gonna say that sound like the establishment right there.
The Currency Act.
Man, look, I don't think I've been open to this whole period. This a whole paradigm. Because everything is always money, and you always talking about these commercial crimes.
Islam said, which prohibited the colonies from printing their own currency, and the Stamp Act. Right now, we recall going over the Stamp Act before. Right, we've gone over the Stamp Act before, which required colonists to pay a tax on paper and printed materials. Why would they be paying a tax on paper and printed materials if it was being printed and the paper was coming from over here? During the 17th, maybe they had to pay somebody. Who they have to pay? If it's coming from over here, and they got all the slaves working over here, then why would they have to pay a tax?
That might have been the incorporation of the almighty dollar bill.
Well, the dollar bill was not a such thing yet. We just seen that in the Currency Act that they wasn't allowed to print currency. So we're not going to cap. We're gonna go with the actual truth. Islam.
And anytime you're having to pay a tax, you're crossing over a state line or something.
Some water, something.
Absolutely. So
going from one location to another. So who was, we got to find out.
And it's dealing with sugar. So somebody is moving sugar. So we got to look at where the sugar plantations were. And were there sugar plantations in Africa? You went all the way to Africa to get some people to work on a sugar plantation? All the way to Africa.
They had to pay Chief Tammany. They had to pay Chief Tammany. They had to pay their dues.
Okay. Well, remember Chief Tammany, that was a certain location. There was other chiefs on the land. So we're talking about we're talking about sugar.
Well, they still had those sugar factories. I'm a truck driver, so they still shipping sugar out of Florida.
Yeah. There we go. So yeah, you know, Florida, maybe Cuba, you know, going down into the islands, you know, where that sugar cane is. Since Dr. Bill Keesil, which island do you know of? Because I know you're very familiar with all of them. Which island has the most sugar cane and molasses?
Sugar cane and molasses. You're going to have to go further down. So that's going to be down the ABC chain, and then it's going to be Jamaica, definitely. Because that's why you'll find sugar cane like down in the bottom part, and it's got to be wet. You got to have water. So even with the bottom of the United States, you're going to find sugar cane in Alabama. You're going to find it down in Louisiana. So it's got to be down. So the same thing with the ABC chain. So that's going to be Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, and then Jamaica. And so one of the main reasons you'd be looking at tax is because you're bringing whatever you're bringing something over international waters. And so once you leave those Caribbean islands, whether they are owned by Britain, whether they are owned by the Netherlands, whether they're owned by France, see, that's where we're running into challenges, is because we're just thinking the Caribbean, but it's not the Caribbean, it's who owns which island and what island you're actually having interstate commerce with. When you start dealing in that arena, you end up having to pay excise tax and all of those type things, because you're interacting with the throne and then you're moving that sugar from one location to another. And then if people are involved, then we got a whole nother set of taxes going on.
Gratitude. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, we want to get into this. Let's get into the Sugar Act. The Sugar Act, also called the Plantation Act or Revenue Act, 1764. So we got the Plantation Act or the Revenue Act of 1764. I'm gonna put this link in the chat for you all.
So wouldn't it be true that there was a whole lot of deception with the concentration we've been placed on all of this cotton? Because sugar is a drug. It is one of the greatest drugs. When I help my clients, you know, when I spoke there in Chicago in 2019 at convention and had the unmitigated gall to speak about coffee, you know, I almost got mauled.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And that was because of the sugar addiction. So we talk about all of the drugs over in South America and the drug trade, but in the 1700s, we were selling something more addictive than cocaine over here. And so all of that had to be covered up. That's why all the focus is on the tobacco plantations and the cotton plantations, because don't nobody want to talk about them drugs, that sugar. And that sugar back then, you have to remember, that wasn't your refined white sugar that you eating out of the Domino's bag. That's play. That was that straight, uncut, straight up drug, straight out the sugar cane. If you ain't never ever been high on sugar, if you sit now, my mother's family is from Alabama. When we would go to Alabama to visit them folk, and I just thought they were so country, they would sit, grab a piece of sugar cane, strip it down and suck it. Be like, cousin, you want some? I'm like, what am I gonna do with that? And then they just running around like little rats, just running around. And I'm like, what's wrong with them? So then, of course, you know, it sparks my interest. So I started sucking on the sugar cane, running around like a little rat, because it's a completely different density. And so that is nothing. It's just like drinking liquid. It's liquid sugar. So that's just like liquid crack. And so, yes, your tobacco was addictive. But if you ever see, I lived in Greensboro, and there was a little place called Lorillard there. And half of Greensboro worked there. I'm gonna show you the tie-in so you can really get it. And anybody that is addicted to Newports or that has been addicted to Newports, I'm getting ready to tell you what you're really addicted to. So on the side of the Newport little box, it says all the little ingredients, and it says 2% other ingredient. Guess what, amongst all the chemicals and everything, is in the 2% other ingredient? Sugar. So you're not just addicted to nicotine. They got menthol in there and sugar. You ever sat and had Vicks Vapor Rub on and your good grandmama gave you a ginger ale? All of a sudden, you felt wonderful because it opened up everything. So when I'm stressed out, I'm full of anxiety, everything going crazy, and I can suck in that Newport real quick. That menthol is just making everything okay. I don't realize I'm sucking in that sugar too. So they keeping me fully addicted, because now, no matter what comes, I'm good and high. Islam.
Islam.
Islam, she just went in on the sugar, and I understand. It's very disappointing when I learned one of the highest causes in diabetic. You know what I'm saying?
And the deep thing, brother, with what you're saying with the diabetes, one of the reasons we getting up out of here, and the deep thing, see, my grandmother transitioned at 47 from complications of diabetes. Okay, 47. And I was so scared to turn 47. I mean, it was a true fear to me. And so the deep thing with this diabetes thing is that it's not from sitting down and eating cake all day long. We're getting diabetes from the white people. Let me tell you who they are. Potatoes, rice, bread, and pasta. Because when you eat them, they turn into simple sugar.
The white man.
Each and every time in your body. So you might as well be eating a piece of cake with thick icing because it does the same thing. This is why in the Caribbean, you have such a high rate of glaucoma, because every meal has starch. You're going to have your durian, you're going to have some type, your yuca, you're going to have something that's made of starch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is done strategically. That is done strategically to keep the people dependent and sick. And we do the same thing in the States. And so instead of us having a potato-based thing, bread is a part of everything we eat. And then we turn around and add acid to it. When you add bread and acid together, so what's going to be acid? That's going to be your soda. That's going to be your orange juice. So what do we have at breakfast? We got a piece of toast and we got orange juice. And so what that does is break down your entire digestive tract. And it keeps you dependent and it keeps you sick. And it's all got sugar in it. So this sugar thing, though we're just now finding out, it is the covering up of the tracks of years of addiction. And we learned how to make our children sugar addicts as well. So one of the biggest things we got to repent for is nutritional child abuse. Because many of us got raised to be sugar addicts. And then we turned around and raised little sugar addicts. Islam.
I think one thing to know is, Brother Mosier, one thing to know is processed food. What I'm being heard, because when things are processed over and over, and we take them in our bodies, it puts our body through the same amount of work, and that's how we're wearing ourselves out before the food is giving us any energy. Because I do love some sugar cane, and so therefore I know that the poison of it is that it would be processed. And processed sugar, or what they call refined sugar. So go ahead, Sister Kiss. Tell me, Sister, would you tell me there what about raw sugar cane versus processed food? Because it is a fruit, and then was the poison because it was processed, mass produced? Like maybe it was a restricted, item in our nation, and then it was taken advantage of and became a poison. But what's the relation to it being a fruit versus a poison on processing?
Absolutely. So the challenge there is that it's just like good sex. You can have too much good sex and it end up harming you. So having some of the sugar cane is fine. But when the sugar cane becomes an obsession and it's starting to be a part of your daily routine, just like coffee, very few people turn around eating or drinking black coffee. Like when you talk to most people, it's going to be some sugar, it's going to be some cream. Not many people are just running around, oh my gosh, I just got to have the black coffee. I'm living for the black coffee. No, it's the combination of all of those together. So a little sugar cane once a week, that's one conversation. But when sugar cane becomes a regular part of our regular daily, even though that's natural, it still wears your pancreas out. It makes you insulin resistant, and it does the same type of damage as refined sugar because your body is not made to be able to process it. That's why we become insulin resistant. So this all ties into the lesson because we get a chance to see how long this has been going on. And we now are starting to see why a lot of people didn't live to be real old, because working on those sugar plantations, you got to keep your energy up. So what you doing? You sitting out there sucking on some sugar cane while you're sitting up working. And so they wasn't giving insulin shots to slaves. They wasn't doing that, not at all. So this is where it becomes very toxic, and we get misled into seeing things like, oh, well, but it's natural. It's natural, but too much of a good thing can still cause the same disease. Islam.
Islam, gratitude. Brother Barzil, you had your hand raised.
Islam, gratitude. And the portion that she was bringing out, I like to coin the term, if it ain't white, it ain't, or if it's white, it ain't right. So your white flour. Hey, look, the white, the Europeans agree with me on this. So it's not controversy. They agree with me on this. The white rice, your white flour.
Did you get this? Did you get a consistent agreement from the Europeans, or just a few of them?
Every time I brought it up, they
He got a consent form. He got a consent
you
form.
got this from all of the Europeans.
He got a consent
so all
form.
of them voted.
Absolutely.
Well, they agreed.
That's right.
They agreed. Islam, the sister was going in, and it's important because with the bread, that's them that was really like, yo, you eat white bread. I told my mama, stop buying white bread.
Wheat bread is even worse. Wheat bread is even worse. Your body was not made to process wheat. And see, the crazy thing was, because my dad joined the Nation of Islam when I was a little kid, and then all of a sudden, everything was a bean pie. But they were saying the same thing: don't eat white bread. Don't. So all of a sudden, throw out the white bread. We're doing the wheat bread. But I had no idea that the wheat bread blows you up because it's wheat. So you got flour and wheat together, and that's what you're eating. So that blows you up. It tears you up. And so we wonder why we get 35, 45, 55, and we have joint problems. It's because that wheat is sitting in between your joints. And so it dries up the sinew. So that's one of the ways that you start seeing people around 60 and their fingers are curled over, because their extremities, all of the liquid that's in between their joints is drying out because of the diets that we have chosen. So even after you cut the pork out, you cut the meat out, all of that, if we're still substituting with our comfort food of the bread and the rice and the pasta and the potatoes, all of that is doing the same destruction to our organs. And then when we're in relationships with people who are not dedicated to our highest and best good, our same organs are absorbing all of that too. This is why you don't see, when I was growing up, you used to see old Asiatic men. You just don't see that anymore because you don't have a lot of them being taken care of. Men used to get married and they would look for a good woman because they knew she would cook for them. She would make their house a home and make them feel loved. So it was an incentive to go to work and to be mistreated at work, because when I get home, she's going to make everything better. But now that's not the case. And so houses are not being made homes, and men are not receiving the nurture that they need in order to thrive. So you have some 60-year-old men who have the mentality of a brother that's 27 years old because they've never had the proper nurturing as a grown man. Islam.
Teach. We gotta take care of our grown man. That's Islam.
Islam. Gratitude.
Is Islam. This brother sitting the L on the house L. Are you saying that these sisters ain't cooking the proper food, the proper diet?
No, it's not what I'm saying. I knew you would try to know. What I'm saying is that when men come into maturity, they are able to attract ladies instead of women. Many brothers now are focused on getting them a quote unquote good woman. Well, what is a woman? A woman is a wombed man, a man with a womb. So I can do whatever you can do. You work 45 hours a week. I work 45 hours a week. You come home tired. I come home tired. I'll pick you up something to eat, but I ain't about to sit and cook. I'm not about to get no bunch of joy out of making no meals for you. No, you get it the best way you can. That is a mentality that has been placed. And so part of the reason that I have asked Allah to continue to preserve my life is so that I can take the sisters that have labeled themselves as women and teach them to be ladies. Because if you had a career-oriented mother, many of them taught you to be a career-oriented woman, and they did not teach you to be a nurturing lady. And that's a completely different dynamic. Islam.
Islam, Brother City, did that answer your question, brother?
Yes.
Islam. Gratitude.
You knew he was going to try to flip that on the sisters. That
so Islam, I was just saying.
No. I was asking an honest question because a lot of times,
honest though.
A lot of times a man to get with a woman.
Get out of there, Sydney. Get out of there.
It was an honest question.
Run.
A lot of times we as men, we'll get
Speak on behalf of the men. Go ahead.
And fall in love with the things she cooks. If she cooks fattening foods, then we eat fattening foods. That's all I meant. It goes back to the old myth of the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So I'm just asking the question. It was an honest question. I wasn't trying to be sarcastic.
Not you. Not from the House of Ill. The House of Ill would
North
never
Carolina,
entertain.
not in Charlotte.
Come on now. Come on. Not the House of Ill. Clutch the
He's
pearl.
Sydney L in the House of L. You
In
know
the
how they be having
House
the L
of
days?
Ill.
He's just the LL.
Okay.
Islam. Gratitude. Yeah, Brother Sydney, yeah. I'm glad that you are speaking on the behalf of all the brothers.
All the brothers.
Islam.
He has an affidavit. He has an affidavit.
Hold on. Wait a minute. That ain't fair, Timothy. That ain't fair. How many times as women have y'all heard other women say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach?
Well, you said
you're not never saying that.
All the men.
Yeah, if most women are not saying that because most women can't cook.
Yeah,
so they are not worried.
I mean, nowadays, these women have become microwave women.
What they were saying that during the turn of the century, because I haven't really heard any women
turn of
say
the
that.
Now, is that into 2000? Is that what century you're turning to, ma'am? When you talk about the turn,
the 20th century, the 20th century.
I can't. I simply cannot.
Brother Bartel, you got your hand raised? It's an Asiatic hand.
I'm so upset about the hand being Asiatic.
This Asiatic hand is raised, Islam, and I just wanted to bring order to our demonstrating and say that the brother was not trying to speak on behalf of all the brothers, and I just want he was not trying to do that. So don't imply that on that brother.
Well, he said
brother.
that he was speaking on behalf of all the brothers. I'm just wanting to verify and validate.
No, what I said was, are y'all saying that women cook the wrong food? In most households, as the doctor was saying, man go to work, he come home, he wanting a meal.
What households are you talking about? I'm just trying to figure out.
I'm trying to get some clarity. Like they come home and they want a meal. Okay, all right. And they expect that meal cooked from scratch and on the table, hot and ready when they get there, right, Brother Sidney? Is that how they do it at the house of Eve?
At this house of L, you're gonna be single doing that.
I'm single now.
That's what I'm saying. We got it again.
You gotta stop. You gotta stop. He said I'm single now. We don't
Hey,
want
you gotta identify
single
from
until
what point of view we're coming.
Brother Signiel,
Point of view coming, Islam.
they say quit while you behind.
Wow.
And on a more serious tip, we want to identify with the perspective that we're coming from. I mean, we're not Barney Rubble and Fred Flintstone. We're effective. We have a community, and a nation can rise no higher than its woman. So we have limited knowledge, and that's the food on our table. But that's it, Brother Senior.
Right, and Barney Rubble Eel
Man
was
like
very
come
happy.
home. Man like to come home to barbecue ribs and meatloafs and
chitlins
and he's still eating a little pork in his life.
Brother, that kind of sounds like
that sounds like a Negro.
Mute, but we need to mute.
That sounds like a Negro spiritual song.
It does. It does.
Baby back ribs down by the river.
Trying to have a barbecue.
It's giving
vegan barbecue. Yeah, at the convention we're gonna have vegan barbecue, so it can be done. Vegan meatloaf. Yeah, mushroom meatloaf. We got mushroom meatloaf.
Brother Cineo, it's giving slave.
It's a psychological thing. even looking at steaks, it's a psychological thing. A person say you want to eat a steak or you've been eating good. No, a steak is unnecessary pounds of dead weight that pulls more energy from you that it can give to you. And so it's an ideology. We're thinking steak. You know, it's not steak. You know, it's a dream you've been sold, but it's not really steak. You know.
Islam, indeed. So we look at the Sugar Act of 1764, right? They were paying for sugar in shillings. Brother Cindy, are we going to be paying for the food in shillings?
Shillings? In shillings? Oh.
What shillings?
Shilling. I think it's an Irish form of money. It's a form of money used in Ireland or somewhere like that.
It's an ancient form of money, same like those mills that you're speaking of.
Right, and the chitlins and all of those things.
Okay,
we're
so
not gonna cook any
Irish shillings, huh? 1 pound. 1 pound, 2 shillings. Irish shillings. Okay.
All right. We don't want you to start using any profanity.
No, we banned that. Yeah, that's banned, just like those meals that you wanted people to cook. But he spoke on behalf of all men, because that's what all men want.
No, I did not.
Hold on, but all women want something too, and they'll be slow to say it, but getting it fast.
Oh wow.
What do all women want, Brother Moses, since you're speaking on behalf of the women? What do all women want?
In this class.
You want a man that can cook?
This is Koran. Koran class is off the hook. So what is it, just so that I can tell the women what is it that all women want, Brother Mosi? What is it that all women want? Because I'm just curious.
No, I didn't mean to open up the floor. I'm just saying, from perspective, there's a balance and there's an equal.
Wanted to know so that I could tell the
and
women.
And here's more. Okay. So here's a quote besides his name, Nikola Tesla. He's speaking of energy. He's speaking of living, physical, bodily, human energy.
That's some
And
energy.
he talks of it, and he says of it that well, this energy is love. He says of it that women hoard this energy is hoarded by women, and his description of it is not negative at all, because we're talking about principle of love, the way it's just
Go
coveted.
ahead, Mo, get it out.
It's just coveted.
Yeah, he's
love is coveted by women.
Okay, and you said Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, said this?
No. Nikola Tesla. It was a quote from Tesla himself, Nikola Tesla. And I'll bring it out because we're talking about energy, real living frequencies or energies. And so, yeah.
So women want the energy of love. I can agree with that. Women want the energy of love and the energy of your attention. When you give love and attention, we don't mind cooking for you. Your house will be clean, and there won't be a no in the house.
Okay, so that worked out good. Praise God.
That's all I was saying. That's all I was.
No. That is not what the House of Ill was representing. You will not ride on Mosey's coattail today. No, sir.
I'm sorry,
No,
but
indeed.
I do not. Hold. This is Sidney Lazar ill.
Okay.
I do not ride on
Doctor,
I do not ride on Moses' coattail. Now,
I think that's another person, because the way Jesus broke it down, that there's another person.
Gratitude.
So let's go back to the sugar tax. Let's resume the sugar tax. Glory.
Islam. So it said that the sugar tax brought on the currency tax, but from what I read, the currency tax was in April of 64, and the sugar tax actually happened in September of 64. So the currency tax was passed first. All right, so the currency tax, it says, whereas great quantities of paper bills have been created and issued in His Majesty's colonies or plantations in America. What colonies did His Majesty own?
I dare say the 13.
He owned the 13 colonies?
They was trying to get away from him.
So how did he own the 13 colonies? Let's give some verification and validation.
Is our brother Sidney? I'm sure you could pull in for me on this one.
reread the sentence.
I cannot.
How did y'all gonna behave? How did His Majesty George own the colonies?
Okay, no, he didn't. They were running.
Well,
from
that
him.
was because he married Charlotte.
Hold on. It says that whereas great quantities of paper bills of credit have been created and issued in His Majesty's colonies or plantations in America by virtue of acts.
Hold on, we didn't get that far yet.
Okay,
I stopped at colonies.
Okay.
So what I wanted to know is, how did King George, His Britannic Majesty, own the colonies in America? Let's go.
Okay. Oh, well, now that's simple, because the 13 colonies were established in North America by Great Britain during the 17th century. So that's the reason that he owned them. So everything up in what
Are
we
we
call
sure it
now
was the
Massachusetts.
17th century?
Well, let's do it like this here.
Okay.
King George. Number one, King George had 3 houses.
Okay.
He had
Uh-oh.
Ireland. Wait a minute. He had Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
He had Scotland, and he had Great Britain, the House of Parliament. So by the time this land was colonized, right, the first 13 colonies, the first 13 states, they answered to Great Britain. Everything they incorporated, they sent home for directions and plans of actions. That's how he owned the colonies. Because the colonies was backed by the British. Even though they was warring with Spain and the Spanish and the French.
Right. Absolutely. And I
Even
actually stand
though-
corrected. It was the early 1600s. So I was 100 years off. But yeah, without a question. And then in the 1700s, that's when they formed into 13 British colonies. So the king had his hand in every bit of it. So as they were doing their harvesting their raw materials, their lumber, the fur, the fish, all of that, Britain's empire was still growing. But without a question, yeah, the king was running every bit of that. Because you got to think about it, these people, they were wealthy, but they weren't wealthy enough to run their own. This is why they had to get help just trying to figure out how to plant and grow and all of that. And because they were unable to, this is why it was like, oh, well, let's just go ahead and try to take these people's land because we're not trying to learn all of this. Why are we going to try to learn this?
Okay. And see, then at the same time, they incorporated the method of trade. And that's where the sugar cane and the molasses and the rum and the killing of the animals and shipping the furs. See, and it all ended up being focused in the commerce. If y'all remember, about two to 3 months back, we was going through the trade routes, and we come across the order of 1810 that was signed by George Washington, and they spoke of how rich the land was. Look to profit and receive from the land. The maple oak trees, the pine trees, that could be used for shipbuilding and the building of homes. The vegetation with the soil being rich, the animals, the growth of vegetation, the furs that they could ship home off the back of the animals. So it all focused in on commerce, the dollar. And in that process, in the routes back to Great Britain, they stopped through the Caribbean and started making trades. And the trades went from being coin money or money to people, to the human body. And they didn't give a dang who they traded, because during that time we had European slaves that was getting caught up in the slave route.
Islam, Islam, praise Allah, because the floor is open. I want to say that I believe it's important that we recognize trade is ancient, and we're talking about the fall of man, Islam, and so bad trade, bad trade, you know, decrease, and also that these colonies were LLCs of a certain person or of the king. These colonies were corporations of the king. But Islam, I'm not sure they were LLCs. So they were corporations established and given trade. So I think we're going to lead into how did King George get his ties to the land? Because the land is a fee simple estate or is unable to be sold. and that would be is marrying Queen Charlotte. I believe we're going to go in that direction. I'm not sure. I thought that might come out. Islam.
Yeah. Now the deep part
Islam.
is
Well,
remember,
Queen Charlotte was a Moor.
Hold on, brother. No, we know you happy because Queen Charlotte is of North Carolina too.
House of L. Yes, Lord.
Yeah,
She's
we
from the
know
House
that.
of L. Yes, Mecklenburg L. Yes.
Yeah, yes, we
but
know
now
we
this
are
is
very aware.
what we probably did not connect was when you looked at those 13 colonies, when you look at the pattern of those 13 colonies. So we're looking at Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Hampshire, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and South Carolina. When you look at those and you look at all of them and you look at the ports, these are your port cities. So this is the exact same way if you put it parallel to the Nile and you look at the uniting of Lower and Upper Egypt, the same trade route. Same trade route. So all of this, and then when you turn the map and you start looking at the trade from Florida over to New Orleans, that's the same thing. So the Mississippi, we're doing the same thing. It was nothing but a parallel. So they copied this whole thing. This wasn't even an original thought. None of this was an original thought. This was just a copy of the same thing.
You say they copy and paste, copy, paste.
That's right. Go ahead, brother Sunil.
Absolutely.
Islam. I agree with that, and I would like to add to them 13 colonies because during that time,
what is 14 colonies?
13. During that time,
you said you wanted to add. I'm trying to figure out how many more you want to add.
Well, it's 14 counting Great Britain.
But Great Britain is a colony. Okay.
During that time, right, we had to understand what their viewpoint was. Here's King George, a man of three thrones, Ireland, Scotland, and Great Britain. Okay. Those thrones bowed against Rome and won. They called it the Celtic Cross, Ireland, Scotland, and Africa. Now, when they formed the 13 colonies, look at that. From Massachusetts, up from Rhode Island, Massachusetts, all the way down the coastline to Georgia. That was a power move. Why was it a power move? They had to conquer the first 13 states because what they mapped out was the shoreline. That's all they looked at. That was the shoreline. If they controlled and kept control of the shoreline, then that ship, they ships could come in anywhere across them 13 states on the East Coast side and come inward.
Islam.
And they traded. They traded up and down the coast. They didn't even have to come off the ship. They get close enough to send a boat to shore and do their trades and get back on the boat and sell a little farther. So it was a power move. It was a control move. Because if they ran the Native Americans off that land and got control of the shores, then they could eventually win control of the land.
Islam. So we want to make it clear that the Native Americans were the ones that were in Alaska who received nationality through the Naturalization Act. And those people, they cannot trace themselves beyond the Naturalization Act as being an American, because many of them moved here. Well, they're now will be most of their great-grandparents who have moved here, and they're really like third, some of them maybe fourth generation of being here in the United States of America. Are you talking about the one that they call the Indian, brother?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, now if you see this proclamation line, see the one of 1763. So you notice this proclamation went out in 1763. And then you have, right after that, you have the Currency Act that comes out in 1764. You see that? And then you have this thing called the Sugar Act that comes out in 1764. You see that? Right. That's all because of this proclamation line of 1763. So what was going on at this time, you had Lord Dunmore, who was a duke for Britain. Him and Cornwall, Chief Cornwall, had decided that they're not going to fight each other any longer. And so they came up with this 1763 proclamation line. So even though they was able to get import and export off of this coast, they didn't own the waters of the coast. See, all this was still Queen Charlotte's land. This was still her allotted land in her trust that her husband, King George, was overseeing.
Islam. Praise Allah. I just want to say Islam because that was not a guess. I wasn't guessing, but it was from our repetitions and studies that is directed to Queen Charlotte. Islam. Praise
Islam.
Allah.
Gratitude. Yeah, I mean, King George, they said that, this is what Wikipedia does. This is what the internet does, right? The internet says, although it has since been suggested that he had bipolar disorder, there was no such thing as bipolar disorder in the 1700s or the 1800s. No one was ever diagnosed, and they will actually put this on King George. Bipolar disorder. Right? This is why it's so important for us to make direct affidavits, notices, declarations, etc. Because see, the internet will put these things on you. Islam. It's talking about the in 1807, the transatlantic slave trade was banned from the British Empire. There was no transatlantic slave trade. We just read that in Sunday school, that it was the Atlantic slave trade, and it was going from London all the way down to Sierra Leone. Isn't that what we read? Anyone? Do y'all remember? Was y'all there?
I was there.
Islam.
I was there and I witnessed it.
There you go. Come
Islam. My husband said he was there. Islam.
Islam.
My sister, my sister said she was there.
Say it slow.
Islam.
Say it slow, babe. Say it slow, please. Please.
Islam.
Give them a chance. They're going to come on and tell you they were there. Say it slow.
Gratitude, Islam. So, who is that with the smiley faces? Islam. So, for the Moors who wasn't in Sunday school, it's past Sunday. Let's go to Let's pull
Refresh
it
that
up.
one more time. You said was it trade from was it France to Sierra Leone?
No, it was from London.
London.
Remember, we was going through the maps. You was there,
Yeah,
brother.
I remember, but you know, I'm just got to make sure I'm getting refreshed and make sure I'm taking notes. I want to make sure my notes are correct.
You put numbers in the chat for us, bro.
Oh, I was there, but shoot, some days I'm having a hard time remember what I had for breakfast this morning.
It's that's what I was gonna say. I was there.
That's because of the sugar.
We covered that. I'm already in shock and awe about all of that. Yeah.
Praise Allah. So you got to say it slow sometimes. And Sister Alicia's Vanguard.
Islam.
I was present, and I remember those numbers more so than the exact elements of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Gratitude. Yes, because you was the numbers keeper. You kept us on the right track, because I wasn't going to be able to figure that math out.
7 minutes left. 5 minutes left.
Islam, and
he was doing the mileage of our journey this time.
He was able to keep us with that mileage. He was on it, because I was not going to be able to do that, not even with a calculator. I'm not going.
He converted it into nautical miles, and I mean, I was so impressed. And I mean, I owned a travel agency for 20 years, and I just sat there in awe, like, well, look at there. And he's gone from audible to nautical and all of that right there. We went into the aeronautics world, and if we decided to take it from aeronautics and how fast the horse ran, we thought it was 27, and it went from 27. He found a 55-mile-an-hour, and that horse was hopped up on sugar. That horse was hopped up on sugar, and that's exactly what happened. Yes, sir. Yes, indeed.
Yes, he was able to life. Look, he was breaking down those numbers. I was just like, okay.
He was able to keep us from falling. Yes, he was.
Yes, because I couldn't have done it myself, more. You know,
the numbers
I don't know everything. No, I know some things, but I don't know everything.
But did you notice that it kept coming back to being a creation? That, you know, if we had some people sleeping while the other people were driving, and then, you know, we had unified bathroom breaks. So everybody's going to go at the same time. You're in and out, and we go. That's how you do it in a creation.
Islam.
So we added those extra 5 days on just to be polite.
Yeah.
But if you was riding, like when my daddy was driving and we did long distance, you was gonna figure it out.
Oh yeah, you was gonna hold that.
Oh, absolutely. Or you was gonna go try. You said, what? We're not stopping for another 7 hours. Go try. Go try. Just in case. Right.
Islam. That's right.
Islam.
So we have the history of Sierra Leone. It says the Atlantic slave trade. Now notice this, the same picture that they pull up that comes up for the Atlantic slave trade is the same picture that pulls up for the transatlantic slave trade.
Islam, we still can see George III. I don't know if you switched.
Oh, my bad. I got y'all. New share. Let me help you out. He's gonna keep me from falling.
Oh, because he is that person.
Every time.
That person.
Look,
everyone needs that
keep
person.
Me on.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes, indeed.
That's what we need.
Yes. Islam. The Atlantic slave trade photo is the same one that they used for the transatlantic slave trade.
We need strong men and women. So when you get weak somewhere, that brother gonna come right on in and say, "This is what we need."
Islam.
And law and order as well. Islam.
Yes, and his voice gets deeper when he does it.
Islam.
Yes.
He says the Atlantic slave trade had a significant impact on Sierra Leone, as this trade flourished in the 17th and 18th century. Now, The 18th century would have been with the 1700s. The 17th century would have been the no. Yeah, no. The 17th century would have been
you're correct.
The 17th century would have been
behind. The 17th century is the 1600s. It's behind. Right.
Islam. Right. And the 18th century would have been
the
1700s. So it flourished in the 17th and 18th centuries. And later as a center of anti-slavery efforts when the trade was abolished in 1807. Right? So this whole Sierra Leone was created by this company because the location wasn't even called Sierra Leone. It was a corporation, right? It said that Sierra Leone first became inhabited by indigenous African peoples. Like none of these people, these pictures that they're showing, these don't look like my family members. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry because no one in my family looks like this.
Never have and never will.
Never have and never will. Said at least 250,000 years ago. The Limba were the first tribe known to inhabit Sierra Leone. So they weren't even from there. So how they get imported there 250,000 years ago? The dense tropical rainforest partially isolated the region from other West African cultures. And it became a refuge for people's escaping violence and jihads. Yeah, the internet.
And jihads. Isn't that interesting?
Hold on for a minute. Hold on for a minute.
Time out. Wait a minute.
Time out.
Everybody wake up and heard jihad.
Let's go from the
Africa
to
the house.
to the Africas to the jihad.
Wait a minute now.
The jihad.
In Arabic, jihad means struggle or war. Now, so are you saying the first tribe to inhabit Sierra Leone in West Africa was not only indigenous, but Muslim?
That's what I heard, brother.
Well, no, it said they were trying to escape jihad. Now, Muslims wouldn't be trying to escape jihad. So that's what lets you know that's not us.
Are running to jihad.
Right. That's what lets you know that those are us, because we were already practicing Islam. That was already
put the curse on jihad. Put the curse on jihad.
Okay. Following
what that say? It was an Arabic word which literally means what? Striving or struggling.
That's right. To struggle or strive. That's
especially with a praiseworthy aim in the Islamic context. It can refer to almost any effort to make personal and social life conform with God's guidance, such as struggle against one's evil inclinations.
And so when we're struggling.
Why would they run to jihad?
With one evil incarnation. With one evil incarnation. With one lowest self. Islam. Who's the what?
That lower self. Talk about it, brother.
With their left hand.
Struggle though.
They were struggling with their left hand.
So they was escaping violence and jihads.
That means struggling.
I mean, I'm telling you, what the internet is always winning.
Well, even though basically I lined this up like this here. Indigenous axiom people. Indigenous Aboriginal born of the land. The first tribe
the danger,
is Libya.
the danger of
That
this, man.
proves
Like somebody
You're not gonna
outside
be
this
able to
group, they
get
would
in there.
read this and they would believe this.
Exactly. There you go, BL. Absolutely.
That's
All
right,
day.
brother BL. That's the
Hold on a
crazy
second,
part
though.
about it.
That's right.
Part of it. That's right.
Yeah,
Islam.
this is crazy that they will actually
Absolutely.
put this in here,
and then nobody challenges it.
Oh
You know,
my
that's
goodness.
why that's what I love.
Is-
Because
is-
you can go in and you can challenge Wikipedia and be like, this is a lie, this is foolishness, and y'all made this up while you were smoking weed because it's just not true. It's just not true.
It's crazy because I promise you, I was Googling something. I was proving a point to somebody, and I looked up black, and it said black or color, something stained or dyed or something like that. I went back on Google 3 to 4 months later that year, and it says black associated to black people, a Negro, or a color, or a dark color. I wish I would have screenshot it. Cause I promise you it changed. I promise you it did. Like it's crazy.
So we're not even going to address the fact that it said it was named by a Portuguese explorer and mapped in the region in 1462.
Oh, we getting there. We
ain't got there yet. Okay, go
We're
ahead.
still trying to get over the atrocity
of the
of the first part of the lie. Right. That's the first part of the lie.
And then it was named
exactly
by
exactly
the Portuguese. Now where's Portugal? Let's get out our map.
Or which Portugal? See, that's the question. Which Portugal are we dealing with?
Look, east or west?
There you go. There you go.
East or west?
And this is why these classes are so important. And it's important that we also join the Mighty Network and listen to the playbacks. This is what, when we turn off the Negro, Black, and Colored program and music, and we go back and we listen to these classes when we sign up and we're members of the Mighty Network, then when we listen to it a second time, stuff starts to click. It's wonderful to go back and listen, like after we have a class, as soon as it's posted, that's what you want to listen to while you sleep, because then it gets down in your subconscious. Because just while we're talking and all of that, you know, it's just hitting you. But when you're asleep, you're more receptive. And so then that information gets down in your subconscious. So can't nobody take that from you. You ain't got to fumble through no notes. You ain't got to call Sister K and sit up. When we had class, remember you said, this is from the house of, ain't none of that. It's in my subconscious. So if I've got to sit and I got to teach this to somebody and it's just me, then I'm more enough to know I'm more than capable. I'm more than ready to answer that call because it's in my subconscious and you can't take that away from me. Islam.
So basically, Sierra Leone and that area of Africa, they was Muslim. Sierra Leone, Liberia, and so forth.
Sierra Leone?
Yeah.
Who is that?
Sierra Leone.
Who are those people?
No, you mean Sierra Leone, Islam, right?
Sierra
Leone.
We gotta take our time.
He's created a new place.
Take our time. See, speaking.
So, Brother Sidney, you were saying, what about Sierra Leone?
So that's saying that the original inhabitants was Muslim. I mean, and then when you think about, well, okay, what part of Axiom did they start bringing slaves from? Was that particular part Christian or was they were Muslim? That's why the rumor of slavery was that they retaught the Africans Christianity. And that's what Noble Drew Ali came to bring to us, is who we were before slavery. That's what following the passage of our nationality is. Learning about where we derive from as a nation.
Islam.
The word indigenous African people, just wow. Okay. Indigenous African people. Running from jihad. Okay.
Because before 9/11, the majority of Christians didn't even know what jihad was. So if these people are running from jihad, then they had some type of familiarity with Islam.
Exactly.
Who's just running around running from jihad and you don't even know what it is?
Islam. This brings to mind something. Islam that a platform. Who is profiteer for this word jihad, and what platform was the beneficiary of what is jihad for it to be mentioned? If they running from jihad, that's a governmental something where they said something, and then it's called a jihad as far as this being executed. So I don't know. I mean, this is the lesson, Islam. What is jihad? What platform? And what government, Islam, or what platform for who, for what pack, Islam. The word links to a body, grand body. What's the grand body that the word jihad links to? And then it affects certain people, like maybe gypsies who can't tarry in the land, because jihad was the order of the day. Nationality is the order of the day. Jihad was the execution of the, I don't want to use that word, jihad, Islam, or the word execution, but at the same time, fulfilling of government order.
Islam, praise Allah.
Praise Allah.
Gratitude. So we have Portugal. Now remember that it was London, right? It was the company in London that created Sierra Leone. And remember when I said that this past Sunday that they would jump from London and go all the way down here, because they said they created it to solve the Black African American issue. Remember they said it was an African American issue in London.
But our people love, our African brothers love the UK today. They love London. That's like, that's like New York or something to them. I don't know what it's like. But when they talk about it, it's like they catch
London.
Well, now there's a reason for that. There is a reason for that. Wherever our brothers go, you can talk to any brother who's ever been in the military. The women love them.
People.
So you can be.
I didn't have people tell me they going to the UK like it was it's something special over it.
Yeah.
And so you can be one of what an American woman would call the most unattractive man. And you go over to London.
I'm with you.
And those pale-skinned European women, they lose their whole mind over you. So you who have never gotten any attention, all of a sudden got women buying you clothes and buying you cars and offering
exotic.
you all types of things that you never ever knew. So
they
that's why they love.
Not like London. Yeah, I'm
No.
Yeah, that's a whole
they're doing that during tax season. I don't know where y'all been at.
See, it's a little different because see, the hood, that's a short. All of a sudden, you're attractive until your money runs out. See, when I was over in Manchester, when I was over, and I'm telling you, I almost moved to Manchester. I promise you, if I could have given my house to one of my students, y'all wouldn't have never seen me back in the States in 2018 because they worshiped me when I was over there. No cap. It was
that melon.
Bananas. It was, and it was weird to me because I'm not attracted to pale-skinned European men, but they were enamored. And I was just like, oh, okay. Can I please take a picture with you? Can I pay for your food? Can I buy you groceries? I said, yes. I'm not rude.
I'm saying,
I'm not rude. Of course you can pay for my groceries and go on.
You ain't getting none of my source data.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not gonna cook nothing for you. But what's so deep, see, that's what happens to the African brothers when they go to London. They are everything. And don't be tall, because they're going to teach you how to play basketball because they see your future. And what they see is them becoming a basketball wife. So all of a sudden, it's a completely different thing. So they would rather go to the UK. Yeah, they would rather go to the UK than to come over here because we don't get impressed by that. It's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, that's okay. This is too much work and nah. So yeah, they go to the UK and it's over. So you could have grown up in a one-room hut and women buy you houses over there. Yeah, they buy brothers houses.
Yeah, that's why
all the Nigerians are there.
Exactly.
All day running their schemes.
They be toe up. But
got
they ride
a tooth in their head.
cars and everything, y'all.
You ain't gotta have a tooth in your head. They will buy you veneers. I have never seen anything like it in my life, but it is so real. It is so real.
It's piracy.
You said it's heresy? Is it heresy?
Piracy. Yeah. No, just coincidentally, because yeah. My children like ourselves as pirates from time to time, yeah. Though I say it's piracy, hijacking of the energies. You know, of course they love us. They love us to death, and we
they do
harness that energy. Yep, we gotta harness it behind our nation, right? Islam.
Oh. Islam.
Like the way you describe it is like boys get to go be Michael Jordan, like NBA players playing, or like boys playing ball in the off season over there, and they be like famous over there, and we don't even know about it, type of stuff.
No, that's exactly how it is. Yeah, and so that's just like that's one of the reasons that like some of the brothers that are in the G League, and then they'll go over to Europe, and they blow up in Europe. You know, so you ain't doing nothing but 10 points per game over here, but you go over there and because you look the part and you so amazing, you Jordan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and so
it's a lot of
Carbondale
graduates.
Yes. All our friends from here, that's what they do. They don't want to come back over here and sell drugs.
Not at all. Nope.
So they're going to stay over there and play the D League.
Yep.
Because they are so well received, and literally it is melanin worship. It is literal melanin worship. But no, I would have never come back to the States. London, I don't have nothing to do, but Manchester, oh yeah, I'd have lived there.
Also over there, mainly while they playing in the league, I found out that everything is tax-free for them. No taxes whatsoever.
It absolutely is, yes. And they don't pay for nothing because everything is an endorsement. Everything is an endorsement. Hey, will you drive this car? hey, will you do this? And so they're like, yeah, I'll drive your car. Sure. Give me 2 of them.
Yeah, there are some there are some independent brothers also. I once was introduced to a brother from France, and they have strong opinions of us over here as relative to laziness or to that something to that portion. But they just have strong opinions of us over here. But I've seen some non-English speaking Moors or like defects from here, Islam. And I see that. Yeah, because they would be over there, and chose over there versus, like over there when we was kids, and they chose to stay over there, grew up over there, and Islam. And then I'm specifically speaking about a French-speaking brother who didn't know no English at the same time. He right here in America.
Yeah, he's over here. Yeah, it's one of those things where everyone in the world seems to always want to be here. It's just something about, I guess, the rubber trees. I don't know. It might be the cotton, or it may be the maize. We don't know, but yeah, they all want to. It can be the wild turkey, but they all want to. It might be the sassafras.
Islam,
Islam.
Islam.
I mean, well, I was in the military, so I lived over there. They attracted to us because they watch us on TV. They believe us in those videos. They believe. They believe in our athleticism and all that stuff, and they think all that stuff is like what they say on TV and like power and all that stuff. They really think that's what it is, and they gonna find this big black dude and it's gonna save them and take them in and all this good stuff. They're gonna have all this fun in America, but
we call it Holy Koran, Moorish Movement of America, chapter on magistrate and subject, and some other chapters we spoke about our being placed in position, and then when we say guides of the nation, we are guides of our future guides of the nation, though that's future guides of the world. And our actions are for a guide of all humanity, et cetera, with statehood. Big ups.
Islam, gratitude. Go ahead, Brother Barnsdale. You had your hand raised, Brother Barnsdale.
Islam, gratitude. I was dealing with some difficulties. I think, Sister K, it's these grand juniper trees over here.
The juniper trees?
I think it's the juniper, it's the Bennett, the grand juniper tree coming out of North America. Islam. I think it's the grand tree. Islam,
the grand tree. Islam.
Yes.
It might be the brother said the grand juniper tree. It could be
I like that. Islam, Brother Barnsdale.
Islam, nice. It might be the pineapples, right? Because that's indigenous to here. It could be, like I was saying, the rubber, right? Rubber is indigenous to the Americas, right? Henry Ford. He actually
was indigenous to
America. An entire island. He was indigenous to America, and he purchased an entire island in South America just to produce the tires for the Ford Assembly. Oh yeah, because rubber is indigenous to here, right? They talk about, this came from Africa and that came from, there's over 600 foods that was worldwide only because it came from over here. Like, over 600 foods.
So right.
We fed the world. I'm gonna be doing next week I might go over maize. I really want to teach on maize and how maize, what they call corn today, because when you get stuck in that maize, you gotta know how to navigate, or you'll just be there for days. trying to figure out how to get out of one of those mazes. See, that's why when we look at this, when we look at this thing here, that's called the proclamation line. Let me go back to that proclamation. I love that map. This proclamation line, see, you see that it was part of Pennsylvania, right? If y'all ever been in Pennsylvania, you ever been in West Virginia, you know, getting up into like when you Maryland on the line when you start getting closer, coming into like the Ohios and things of that nature. If you're ever in the what they call the central and northern part of North Carolina, and you're coming through, it's a big mountain called the Pinnacle, the big Pinnacle, right? When you start going through here, you'll notice that, see, there are lands, there's so many lands, and it's full of trees and mountains, right? Because this is the range or the terrain that you're on. And then there's also all these things called these what they didn't call them plantations back then, they just called it land. And there was so much maize. So even if they would try to run in here past the line, they had no way on how to navigate. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
These people were foreign. They didn't know. See, the same way when we ask the questions like, how did they get into Middle Africa when you got whole countries like Mali, when you know, I keep going back to Mansa Musa because what he shows is so much wealth that he bankrupt all of those countries over there because he gave out so much gold in 1 year when he made Hajj. He gave out so much gold, gold became worthless. When he made Hajj, that's how much gold he had, right? So you got Mansa Musa. How did they penetrate Africa when you have kings and a line of kings and queens coming from Mansa Musa? It just doesn't make logical sense.
You gonna let them take your king and queen. You gonna move out the way and give them full access to your king and your queen. Even if you look at the way things are set up now, everybody ain't gonna let folk come into the United States and just roll up on bike. It's just not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
We had to been drunk. We were drunk.
Come on. But we just let folk come up into Middle Africa and not just take regular folk, but they took the scientists and the kings and queens, and nobody came to get them.
Come on now, who let them in here?
Nobody came to get them. You gonna take my king and my queen, and we not gonna do everything we can.
They didn't do it by force.
Who just let them come in here? Come on now.
Right.
They didn't do it by force. That's why.
Make it make sense.
No.
Yeah, the tales. They call those the tales of the crypt where I was from.
Come on.
So yeah, you know, you got this whole Sierra Leone thing, you got this Liberia thing, that's another fiction that was made up.
Absolutely.
Another creation that was created, right, by these people that was in these colonies over here.
Yes.
They created Liberia.
All day.
And then London, one of the London companies created Sierra Leone.
I had one of my Christian friends. He was he was speaking highly of Mansa Musa until I took him back to the history. I said, "Now you know Mansa Musa was a Moor, right?" Man, that dude he went left with it all the way. Man, was found that out. I said, y'all keep trying to run from your history, keep trying to label us as this and do all this, man. But you keep going back in history, and it just shows you that man was a Moor.
Yeah.
Yet again.
Now remember
he wasn't passing. He wasn't no high yellow brother passing, not at all.
Well, you know, a lot of the darker hues even pass because at one point in time, you couldn't even say that you were Lene Lenape. You couldn't say that you know, you were Creek or Chickasaw, Choctaw, right? Because they were, remember the pictures that they were showing us of all the brothers and the brothers they was hanging from the trees. Yeah, that was not because you was African from Africa over there. That was because you owned land, right? You was an heir over here. So if we kill off all the landowners, now we can take the lands from them. So
they didn't. You never saw light-skinned people hanging from trees.
Come on now.
Think about all the pictures you always saw. You never saw light-skinned men hanging from trees.
That's right. And let me add in, as she just shared with y'all, even when we stood up for ourselves, because my great-grandfather's brother was murdered for standing up for him and his family. And they hung him on a tree, not once, but twice. They did the ritual twice. So they don't respect us. Islam.
Islam.
But back to those mounds, right here in Southern Illinois, I took Brother D. Barnesville to work one time, and I told him, I said, brother, you know, it get kind of tricky when you get up in here. The ancient forefathers, the way they guided over there, you lose computer, signals, and everything when you get in certain areas, riding through Anna, or trying to get to Anna, or trying to get to the farm. And what I noticed is when the state police it told me, he said, there's a lot of areas like that. I said, that's just the ancestors trying to keep these crazy ones from trying to think that they doing something. Because these mounds are in a circle. If you see it from the sky, it makes a circle. And you always hear about inner chambers and outer chambers. Islam, and I hear
Islam. Keeping it in the circle. When we, this is the name of the company that created Sierra Leone. Committee for the Relief of the Black Poor. Committee for the Relief of the Black Poor. Right.
Well, people don't even question stuff.
Oh no, not at all. Why question it? Yeah, why question it when, you know, they've already taught it in school? We know it. We Black, and you know, that's all we need to know is that we're Black. It says the numbers of Black poor in London increased significantly in the aftermath of the American War of Independence, which occurred between 1776 and 1783. Lord Dunmore's proclamation, right? Remember Lord Dunmore? And it was Cornwall, Chief Cornwall. They made a proclamation, and this was done at the Camp Charlotte, right? This was done at the Camp Charlotte, right? Which was King George's wife's land, resulted in several thousand Black slaves running away from the estates of patriots. Oh my goodness. So the only place for quote unquote Black slaves that was over here after the British lost the war, how did Black slaves get from over here all the way over here to London? How would Black slaves get from there? We talking about
they simply took a ship, sister. One of the slave ships.
You
They just
can't
took one of the
afford,
slave
you
ships.
can't afford.
You got your 40
fair.
acres and a mule. Yes, you can too.
Sister, the
Oh,
40 acres and a
absolutely.
mule, okay. The 40 acres and a mule did not come until after the Civil War. And the 40 acres and a mule literally was only a portion of the parish islands in South Carolina, Georgia, and the tip of Florida, the top part of Florida. That's all 40 acres and a mule was. And they didn't even
They
give
came
them the
over on
mules.
slave ships. All they had to do was simply take the slave ship back, right?
I don't think there were no slave ships because there ain't no way you put a group of African men on one ship.
Come on, come on, come on.
You know what I think it was?
What you think it was?
The Mayflower. That boat that brought Christopher Columbus and all his people over here, because aren't the Europeans of the Slavic tongue of the slave? Weren't they the slaves first? The only slave that came on the ship was them. They didn't find them, but you know.
But where did Christopher Columbus? He didn't come anywhere up in here. He was only right here. He was down here in this area.
Yeah, it was in Haiti.
He didn't get up in here. He didn't have any access to over here. He was down in here in this area.
But that's what I'm saying. So they don't even know where they were going. So they was on a ship with a bunch of African brothers just taking them, finding them wherever they just go, and like, oh, here we go.
Oh, they knew where they was going. They knew they was coming over here. Right? They was coming over here because they had been coming over here. Remember, Mansa Musa had came over here, right? And he hooked up with Queen Khalifa, got all the gold, right? Because all of this right here that they call California, right? Remember, all of California was what? Spain at one time, right? So all of this, all the way down in Mexico, all the way down in South America, all of this was Spain. And what wasn't Christopher Columbus? What wasn't he Spanish? He was Spanish, wasn't he? Then wasn't he working on the behalf of Isabella? And he was working on behalf of Isabella
Ferdinand.
and Ferdinand.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So he was
and
just
this
coming
is
over
why
here.
He took Cortez's land. Everybody got all upset about him taking Cortez's land, not understanding all of that right there was all Spain.
Yeah, and if Cortez ain't pay his taxes, then
come on,
you don't want to pay your taxes. I've been told you know the deal. You know you're supposed to pay your taxes every year. You ain't paid us. So Christopher, we're gonna go ahead and send you over there. And just so happen, if you find anything else, you can go ahead and take that as well.
Right. And they took his gold. That was the biggest thing. From Cortez, they took his gold. His land was sold. So all of that was just, we still have this whole conceptualization. And I mean, if you've been to Europe, you know how small Spain actually is, even now.
Look at this.
Even now, how small it actually is.
North Carolina is bigger than this, ain't that right?
Right. But this little bitty country is running everything.
Yeah, that's because that wasn't Spain. That was an installation, right? Majority of Spain was over here. So when they say that they could kick the Moors out of Spain, right? They kicked the Moors out of all of this over here. All of this over here was Spain. All the way up until here, all this was Spain. Go ahead, Brother Mosia.
I'm seeing that what was it? Islam. I'll pass. Go ahead.
Okay. Islam. All right. So we get back into Brother Mosia. You raised your hand again, brother? Or was that's an old hand or a new hand?
That's old hair.
Okay, old Asiatic hand.
Oh, Islam. Here we are. So this measure, what it's saying is, in my mind, this is tying together, if I may. It's tying together this false height. So I don't want to bring any names of it, but for example, a rapper is not a politician. That's a glory that has its end or shall, because or a greater example, Moorish Temple of America is not a subject of the Secretary of State. And those who choose to be are subject to the rules and regulations of parties bigger than them, no matter how grandeur they may think they are. Islam. And so Columbus came through Spain, and that's what I heard. Columbus came through Spain, and went in for the taxes, and then came out with whatever else, because that's what he had permission to do. Islam. So Montezuma, that's the name. You know, he's big and famous, man of 13 feathers, etc., etc. But that came to naught when he wasn't paying his taxes. Islam. Or maybe Islam. Could that also be relative to being outside ourselves, or not being one with nation and state, or religion and nationality? Islam.
And it's interesting that you brought up those 13 feathers, because that parallels with those 13 arrows on the back of your dollar bill. You know, it's not just by coincidence, 13 feathers, 13 arrows,
13 colonies.
Come on. You know, but then we are told to, quote unquote, run from witchcraft and don't suffer a witch to live. But that's exactly what they were doing. They were doing the 13s, the baker's dozen. It was on purpose. And that is a high number in witchcraft. That's why you don't find 13 floors on most places. So, you know, all of this right here, because when you add your 1 and your 3, you get your 4. So it's taking you back into those 4 elements. So who is holding those 13 arrows? It's an eagle, a part of the 4 elements. So yeah, all of this right here, it's hilarious, because it's made to keep you within a box, and you continue to descend in the rabbit hole, continuing to believe that which is unbelievable.
Islam. That's definitely true. You know, even when, you know, it's funny you mentioned the baker's dozen, which is 13, right? You know, they've scrubbed that from the internet.
Wait, what have they now made it?
Masonic number too.
They say they made it 12.
Stop it.
No.
Is that on Wikipedia? Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna fuss at Mr. Wiki, because he's just lying.
He's just lying. Yeah.
So you can put anything on Wikipedia, and it just is so, because it's there.
Yeah.
It wears me out when I see people use Wikipedia as a solid source. Where'd you say? I saw it on Wikipedia. It's like, wait a minute, did you just say that with your chest? Did you just say that with your chest, and you found it on Wikipedia? Please,
oh yeah, they believe it wholeheartedly too.
Wow. Because you can't post it if it ain't true on the internet.
Yeah, that's why you have to be careful of what you actually take in. You got to be careful what you take in. I want to share a picture with you all. Shout out to Brother Elwood Evansville, who sent me this picture, reminding me of that King Charles set on the throne. And this is why we see what happened in Britain, and we see, which was the direct effect of why we are in the state that we are in today, right? Let's see, let me find it. Can y'all see this photo?
We can.
Okay.
It's on.
It's on. So this photo is a photo of all of the Inca kings or emperors who sat on the empire. This is down in Peru, right? And it wasn't until King Charles V. Now, if you look at everyone, they all had a golden staff. Looked like they had a golden fez with a feather, right? But then when they gave it to King Charles, see the headdress changed? He didn't get a red robe or a red cape. Didn't have a golden staff in his hand.
Why was that?
All of
He
the
also got
other.
that cross in the background.
He also has the cross in the background. Then all of the rest of them that came through King Charles, they all had a charter because they were granted. So it stops right here. Charles didn't even get a grant. Doesn't even have a grant in his hand.
That's the rolled up piece of paper.
Exactly. He doesn't have a charter in his hand. See, he's pointing to the cross. Let me blow it up a little bit more. See him pointing to that cross? It's on. So a lot of times what we was doing was when they would come over, we would allow them and grant them land so that they could do business on. Y'all notice that all the rest of these under King Charles, none of them even had a crown. Not one.
But they have a charter.
They have a charter to do business, brother. This is a business deal. We never gave them our lands.